Eric, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. As we were just saying, it's like the beginnings of the 40-degree weather, rain, but soon to be otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But there's a lot going on. Keep us occupied, keep us busy. I just want to say long time listener, first time caller. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you, sir. So let's jump right into it. Much appreciated. Where are you from?
Yeah, born and raised in Duluth. I'm a proud Duluthian. Duluth, Minnesota, which is, if you're not familiar, on the tip of Lake Superior. Really cool city, figuratively and literally. Um, Beautiful city. A lot of ships going through, big bridges, beautiful aerial lift bridge, and a really super cool music scene. Great music scene, great art scene, and really athletic, really active citizens. It's always like 90,000, never gets bigger, never gets smaller, the population. But just like a great place to grow up. A lot of parks, a lot of creeks and rivers to explore. Yeah, so I'm from Duluth, home of Bob Dylan and some other people as well, probably.
And is the Duluth brand still like anchored in Duluth?
I think it's Wisconsin. I think they moved to Wisconsin. They do
Okay.
have pretty good commercials though. Props to
They
their
do.
commercials.
They do.
Yeah.
I got to hand it to them. So
Yeah.
I've had some, brushes in my life, you could say, with folks from Minnesota. Shout
Mhm.
out Angela if she ever listens to this. But let's get right down to it. I know that Minnesota nice is a thing,
Mhm.
but is it really a thing?
It's it's it is a thing. Um and it's passive aggressiveness is what it is. That's what it comes down to. Um Minnesotans are great at starting up conversation, chatting, being friendly on the surface, and then but as soon as you try to get in front of me in line, it's like no. Like I'm it kind of like comes out a little bit. Um so yeah, it's tricky. People are friendly for sure. It's a great place. I mean, everyone should go visit Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth. I mean, great places to visit. Good people. Um but yeah, I think it's mostly passive aggressiveness. That's what I'm learning since I've been removed from it.
Got it. Got it. So you've been removed from it now for how long?
Let's see, I moved 2003-ish, moved out to New York City.
Okay. All right. So growing up in Duluth, that era, just sort of, I guess, time capsule it for us. Like, what was that like?
God, it was awesome, man. So born in 78. So I grew up in the 80s. Duluth, I was in the 80s. And it was just BMX biking everywhere with my friends. Played a lot of hockey, just a lot of like neighborhood kids, a lot of hockey. Actually, I was neighbors with this high school star. His name is Dave Spihar, if anyone's into like Minnesota hockey, but he's like the greatest high school player of all time. He was a neighbor, so hung out with him a lot. Another kid named Matt Zellen, who like I think he swam in the Olympics. Another girl named Kara Wheeler, who's like this now she's Kara Gouch and living in Boulder, and she's like this like Olympian runner. I mean, it was just like it's crazy like neighborhood pack of kids running around together. Um, when I grew up to do like pretty interesting things. Yeah, so a lot of like biking around, a lot of soccer outside, a lot of in the winter, you're just outside, you're playing hockey, you're messing around in the snow, building forts, just letting off steam. Just a really cool neighborhood, good public schools. Really fun memories. Just a really happy childhood.
So just to sort of, check off one more box here. Can you ice fish and or fly fish?
I've actually never done either, and it's funny because I've also lived in Montana a few different times. Um, so personally, I know I'm 0 for 2.
Well, count me in that mix as well. Although I guess ice fishing doesn't require the most
Yeah,
skill
exactly.
out there in that
Exactly.
realm.
Right.
So just to sort of stick on this Minnesotan and meets sports kind of realm,
Yeah,
who were the icons for you
sure.
growing up that you loved back then and
Yeah.
that you still love today?
Yeah, totally. So back then, I mean, this is the 80s, right? Um, it was pre-Timberwolves, pre-Wild. We had the North Stars. Um, but it was the Twins and the Vikings.
Right.
And the Twins and I'm sure we'll like talk about the Vikings and just kind of Minnesota sports in general, but we're 9-2. I'm just trying not to. I still have my guard up a little bit, just because we always find a way to, what is it, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, kind of thing. You know, great sports town, great city, but we only have two World Series titles to our name, 87 and 91 for the Twins. And I was actually at game 2 of the 87 World Series, which was pretty awesome. Dan Gladden, I remember, hit a home run. I mean, but yeah, so growing up, it was Kirby Puckett was the guy for sure.
Right.
Puck 34, he was like the dude. He was about it. And then like Ken Herbeck and like Frank Viola, like those 80s Twins were really fun, really fun to watch.
Frank Viola had a certain thing about him that just seemed like he was probably a good hang.
Oh, totally. Sweet music Viola. Like I remember that World Series against the Cardinals in '87. Like all the signs, like like the people would like bring signs to the games, and one of them was like by a vowel Herbeck, because he spells it like Hrbek, was a big one. Sweet music Viola, because he just like dominated in that series. And then Gary Gaetti was pretty awesome. Bert Blyleven, who's now like the announcer for the Twins. Circle Me Bert. He's just like he's a good guy. He's a goofball. Good pitcher back then. Man, yeah, so funny. Yeah, that was a blast.
It's funny hearing you say that, you only captured 2 World Series, because me growing up in San Diego, it's like, the Padres made it in '84, and then I played in '98, right? And both times they actually ended up facing off against the Tigers the first time. I think they got swept.
Right. They
Maybe
were
they
good
took
back
a
then, though.
game. And then
Yeah.
the Yankees, of course, were historically great in '98. And the Padres did get swept in that World Series.
Right.
Chargers won Super Bowl to their, checkered past, and now I can't even look at the Bolts,
Right.
because they're like, they scorned this town of
Totally.
San Diego. So,
Who do you support for football then? Who's your team?
so I've gone through a little bit of a journey the last little bit, and my mom is from Cleveland originally, so I was like, maybe I
Nice.
could be a Browns fan.
Yeah.
However, really my absolute OG, and this comes back to Minnesota now, my like absolute OG hero for sports, maybe in general growing up, was Randall Cunningham.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Because I just feel like
Nice. Yeah.
he had, like, not enough people say this about Randall, who's an interesting personality. I believe he's a very happy like pastor nowadays and all that kind of thing. However, back in those days, this guy was dating Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There was this show, like this, like way ahead of its time, like almost kind of Entourage-esque sitcom on HBO that I think was called First and 10, Do It Again. And so I'm like 8, 9 years old, and
Right.
they had like a teaser for the show on HBO, and they showed Randall in like a jacuzzi, like maybe up to like, his like shoulders in the jacuzzi,
Right.
on like an old school like '90s cordless like phone.
Big phone, right.
Big phone. Maybe he had a small chain on, like a Michael Jordan, like, early day chain.
Right.
And he's like laughing in the jacuzzi on the phone. And I'm like, that's the coolest guy of all time.
Oh, for
And like,
sure.
sure enough, this guy, I mean, you watch the swag of modern day players. I think that many of them got that kind of look either from Randall Cunningham or Deion Sanders. And like,
Sure.
I am happy to go to the mat for that.
Totally. 100%. 100% agree.
I don't know if I saw a quarterback rock a clear visor at any time before Randall Cunningham did, and that was way back.
Isn't that funny? Because then Jim McMahon tried it and just like he couldn't really pull it off.
Yeah, he came at an interesting, to your point. He was on the San Diego Chargers when he was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But in any case, Randall Cunningham did have some of his best seasons for the Vikings.
Sure, and that's funny because I always think like Eagles. You think the Eagles, but he was legit from Minnesota. He played very well.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I am actually an Eagles fan now. You've talked about the Sunday pods with Andre. Shout out West Philly hippie.
Yeah.
And I've gotten into the Eagles team. I mean, it seems like one of those environments where The fans are legitimately out of their minds
Oh, totally. Yeah.
completely. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Great like locker room personalities, and they just play their ass off. And so I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna go back actually to being an Eagles fan, because when I was a fan of Randall, I had like Eagles garb like head to toe from like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. The
starter
puffy
cap.
jacket and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally, man. It's because I'm, growing up in the Midwest, I think of, you know, aside from like LA, New York, for the big sports towns, it was like Detroit and Chicago, you know. But I would
Right.
put Philly up there, man. Philly's just like, they're fanatics, dude. Eagles, Flyers, Phillies. I mean, 76ers, how dope are they? Like, what a great town.
I literally like every single time that Andre and I chat, it's like it just, you can just tell how deep, just like Boston, like you said,
Hmm.
Boston,
Boston,
these
another one for
places,
sure.
right?
Totally.
Where like it's just the lineage and the levels of emotion and like the muscle memory that fans have for
Hmm.
these teams. And I
Hmm.
mean, I think that the Eagles were kind of a tortured franchise for a long time
Hmm.
until they got over that hump where they beat Tom Brady.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, totally. Absolutely. Good for you. That's great.
Yeah. So it feels good to have a small allegiance. I'm
Figured that
building
out.
back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally.
Because I'm not exactly authentic to Philly, but nonetheless.
Right. Well, that works out. But that, I mean, hey, I had friends who were born and raised in LA who were huge Bear fans. I mean, they're like Los Angeles fans for everything because football is like the Bears. So whatever works, you know?
Well, no, I mean it's been very liberating, to be honest with you. Right? Because loyalty is a funny thing, especially when it
Mm,
comes to sports.
yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't want to feel inauthentic to what you're
Hmm.
doing on any of
Hmm.
those fronts.
Hmm. Right.
So true to the person that you are today, I reckon that even as a kid, that you were majorly into both sports and art.
Probably more sports growing up. I was super athletic. I was just with friends just playing every like baseball, basketball, like soccer, hockey, like everything.
Right.
Um, and so I guess fast forward a little bit. So then, yeah, I grew up in Duluth, and then when I was maybe 12, moved to Montana. We moved to Helena, Montana, and I was there for like 3 years, and that's when I got really into soccer. Just playing on like just like select clubs and invitations, that kind of thing. Cause like, 12, 13, 14, 15, kind of around there was like the soccer
Huge,
Beastie Boys era,
huge tournaments, all that kind of
huge
stuff.
tournaments going up to Canada, just like big tournaments. I remember there was this like summer clinic that came in. This like dude from like England would come in every summer, and it was like this invitational thing, and I was always like MVP, and I was like pretty good. Um, and then moved one more time to Lincoln, Nebraska for basically high school. And that's when I got more into like music. I think I started with like visual arts came kind of late actually. It was more like really discovered music kind of high school, like the 90s,
Right.
just great music. Um, really got into music, kind of played some music, messed around. And then really for like visual arts, fine art, I graduated college, started a band back in Duluth, did that for a few years, and then I was like, I'm gonna move to New York and, you know, be a painter. And so I applied for MFA programs without having any type of like art, BFA or any type of art background. And just kind of like went for it, and it worked out. So really got into the visual arts now, probably like, college, post-college. Um,
And talk about that student experience in terms of art making.
yeah, totally. Um, a lot of like looking, starting probably like, junior, senior of college. A lot of friends who were artists. To me, it was hanging out in studios, just like partying, whatever. It looked cool. I didn't really think too much of it. And then after college, I started reading. I was playing music, liked it but didn't love it. But I knew I wanted to do something creative, something that I could kind of control and like build up and just have like an outlet. And so started looking at, like Mark Rothko and like Pollock and all these people, kind of like the classic like New York, like 50s artists, whatever. Um,
Rauschenberg, maybe.
Rauschenberg, totally Jasper, like everyone, all the great, they're like, the great dead white men kind of thing. But then from there, that was like my introduction. And then I kind of went backwards and forwards. Got into Basquiat, like everyone, like Warhol, and then backwards, like Caravaggio, and just like some of these like greats. And then I remember looking at like a Rothko and a Pollock, and I was like, yeah, I could probably pull that off. I could probably do something like that. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, I could do that.
I got this.
Let's do that. And honestly, early work was probably pretty derivative of that. There's definitely some like Rothko in there. And then just, playing with paint and figuring things out and going to grad school and having a studio in the city in Manhattan, and just meeting other like art kids and running around and being crazy. And then kind of building up to where it is today, so now it's been what, 20 years, I suppose, just like going at it. I think, finally starting to get somewhere. So yeah, it's been a good ride.
No, you've obviously had an incredible ride. Um, and I've very much enjoyed, one, meeting you, and then two, it's one of these sort of experiences where like you're like, wow, I was excited to just read more about the stuff that you had been doing,
Oh, cool.
and to
Thank you.
sort of like pull, I don't want to say a highlight or anything like that, but and writing clouds, great name,
Thank you.
which
Totally.
opened in New York in 2013,
Mhm.
was, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, your first kind of signature cement installation, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. Before that, I had a show. I might have had another show in New York. I had a show in London. And I was doing these paintings with, they were really like kind of thick and flaky, basically MFA paintings, mixing cement with like oils and acrylics, and it would flake and peel, and they were really beautiful. So I had a show in London, sold a bunch of pieces, and the dealers were like, let's do it again, like now. And I'm like, I don't know. And then, yeah, so then had that show at Rooster Gallery, and it was upstairs. It was like, I think like three or four, just like really nice paintings. And then downstairs, it was an apartment, like a cemented New York City apartment. The piece was called Apartment 4B. And it was like a couch and a table and a lamp and like a desk and maybe like a footstool or something, And you kind of walk down these stairs, like down the stairs into this like gallery space. The lighting was like dramatic, and it was like it was a really cool piece. And that just freed me up from, number one, I don't have to just do like the kind of peely flake colorful paintings. I can do this, you know or maybe I don't want to do this either. Maybe I can do something else now later. So it was very like liberating, um to make the piece and to show the piece. And it's got a little bit of like press, or it started to get noticed. And so it's been, I think I've had a few cement pieces now, maybe like four or five different pieces.
Right. I wanted to ask you. So the first one that sort of you introduced me to that sort of series
Mhm.
was the Volvo 240,
Yeah, totally.
which
Yeah,
I immediately was like, oh my God, like I felt sort of similar to Randall Cunningham. Like I feel like,
yeah. Right,
one, I grew up basically inside that car,
right,
sans
right, right,
of course.
right.
And then two, just the look of it, and I think there's just something so powerful about that iconic Swedish
Oh yeah,
shape.
beautiful. Yeah.
It
Beautiful,
really is
beautiful
just
car.
a
Oh
beautiful
yeah,
car.
the coolest cars.
And what you were able to do with a medium like concrete, which, I'm not a mason per se, but I mean that requires some skill.
It was, yeah, that piece. So by then, a few thoughts. Like by then, my friends had kind of starting to blow up a little bit, and I felt like I wasn't getting enough attention. So part of me was like, I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna like just fuck it. I'm going big. Like, look at me. You know what I mean? And so like each of the pieces, they all kind of tell a story. And so that piece, the original piece, was in a shipping container. It was like this alternative space in Red Hook. And it was a shipping container. I was like, well, the story is somebody's moving, and he's like moving his car, right? And so and I knew it, which was actually interesting, because then I had the dimension. So I knew I wanted a kind of a smaller car. So at first I was like those old like Honda Civics or like Honda Accords, something that would kind of like fit in. Then I was like, well, you might as well make it interesting looking. So I was looking at Porsches, I was looking at Saabs. Um, but then the Volvo, I found it upstate and just drove it down. Found it from this like young lady. I didn't have the heart to tell her like what was about to happen to it. It was like it was, so yeah, I bought it for $500, and it made it from somewhere upstate to Brooklyn, and got to work on it. But yeah, that was a great piece. And then ended up going to a group show in Mana Contemporary, which is this really great space in New Jersey. It was kind of like the centerpiece of like this really big show. And it just looked really cool being inside like a big space as well. You could really kind of walk around it and see like different angles and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Just out of curiosity, where is said Volvo right now?
So I knew that I needed an out, like when the show was over, because no one's gonna buy it. Who's gonna buy it? Um, and so I had a scrap person lined up in New York.
Brilliant.
And he's gonna give me like $500 for it. And I kept saying like it's gonna be like painted in cement. He's like, no problem. But then it went from that space in Brooklyn to New Jersey. So then I was actually in London when like that show was closing. So I called up the dude. I was like, hey, the car's ready. He's like, no, it's in Jersey. I can't like cross straight lines now. I can't like cross state lines. So I'm in London just like calling just like random like scrap yards, like, hey, I got this like Volvo. And someone got it, someone picked it up and I guess parted it out. I don't know. It broke even.
What color was it originally?
It was wow. It was like I want to say like a black with like a maroon stripe. I mean, I do have colors, and I remember like a couple or I do have pictures of it, and a couple like stickers on the back, like a butterfly sticker.
Oh,
It
nice.
was this young lady I bought it from. She had driven it down from Alaska, and she's like, it was like her baby, This is like her car.
This was
Yeah, I
an
think it was.
automobile. This is an automobile of destiny.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think it was black. I think it was black with like a little maroon stripe, and then the inside
Right.
was like the classic kind of like tan, like 5-speed, just bomb, just like a great car. Beautiful car.
Is there, okay, so sort of a two-parter follow up that. One, is there a favorite work, that you have using the cement? And then number two, and I've read some things about the second part, is there a consistent feeling or sort of inspiration or through line for that entire series that you can share?
Sure. Favorite, I'm trying to think. I did one in Berlin. It was like a laundromat, like clothes hanging on like a wire. And that one was cool because I had this residency in Berlin and I just showed up with like a laptop. I was like, I'm gonna figure out the piece when I get there. And it was so I kind of got the supplies when I was there and made it happen, which was a nice challenge. Um, the dentist office was neat. That was the most recent one. That was in Brooklyn. And it was a space that I was kind of given to like use, and it had like the chair. That's all that, like the chair, and then maybe like the cupboard or whatever, like the drawer or like the cabinet thing, the desk or whatever. And so I was like, well, that's like pretty awesome. So I went and got like the lamp, like the overhead lamp and like all the just like I don't know, like the toothbrush and all that kind
All
of
of
stuff.
all of the requisite
The
accoutrement.
paraphernalia. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that one was fun. That was cool. It's funny, like I remember when okay, so for like the apartment 4B, the first one, I had it done, and it's all about like dimensions. I was like, I have one more piece, it's the couch. I was holding off to find it because it had to fit in my studio door and then out my studio door and then into the gallery, right? So it's like we're kind of working with like dimensions. I ended up finding this great kind of fluffy, cushy chair thing that we could like tip, and it like just totally worked. So that was a fun challenge, like making it happen. You know what though, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, the one that I really enjoy, it was like this, it looks like it's a room being painted. There's like a ladder and like a drop cloth.
Right.
That one was cool because I was using drywall and then would kind of like paint the drywall so it looks like it's like the drywall is being painted with cement.
Mhm.
That one was neat, like having it come together was really cool. I thought the drywall was really neat. So yeah, each one, had its own little challenge. When I started with the Volvo, I did it like in July or something. It was like hot. I'm outside working on it. And what I do is like first I gesso it and then I would put like a matte medium and then like the cement. Um, and I put the gesso on and it just like kind of like bubbled up. So I kind of like gessoed this car, but the gesso wasn't really sticking. And I was like, oh, I hope this works. Um, and then, everything out, it worked out. But there's always like little surprises.
Of course. And I mean, in terms of like just the overall message, like,
Sure.
is there like there's obviously kind of a feeling of something being kind of stark and desolate when it's like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
concrete.
totally. They each tell stories. So dentist office, like it's almost like each little scene, each little setting, you feel like I wanted to feel like the viewer is like interrupting. It's like the person just stepped out. I'm kind of like looking around, like the dentist just kind of stepped out. I'm waiting for the dentist. Like, um, this room being painted. I'm just kind of like went to like grab a coffee or something. You're kind of looking around, like I'm not sure I can be here, sort of thing. So I do want it to be a little bit eerie for the
Yeah.
viewer. I do want it to be a little. It's very, very quiet. It's like very silent. It's this weird thing where cement is like this kind of heavy material, industrial material, but it goes on really soft, and it makes the air like really thick and really quiet. And you just kind of go there, and you're just standing in this scene, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, and a little bit uneasy. And it's just like this deafening silence everywhere. Um, and it's not like I don't think I'm like political. I'm not like talking about like paving forests or anything like that. To me, it's just using a heavy kind of gross material like in a different sort of way, making it beautiful, helping people see things that are often overlooked, decay and whatnot, trying to control time, basically. That's what it comes down to.
So that's a word that I definitely, have read, in terms of some of the critical acclaim really about a lot of these things you've done, and
Mhm.
the decay part. And when I
Mhm.
think about it, I'm like, there's almost like at least for me, maybe it's just my sort of pop culture coming out here, but there was a very strong kind of Blade Runner esque
Oh, cool.
amount of mojo happening
Totally.
with each of these works.
Sure. Absolutely. Um, Absolutely. And I think without knowing, I've actually never seen Blade Runner. I'll add it to my list. I'll put it on the list. I have a
Well,
running list of like videos to watch. So
you know
I'll put
what?
it on.
I'm happy to report that our main man Ryan Gosling did not
Oh, there you go.
disappoint in this
Oh,
in the
good.
sequel.
Okay,
So
good. Okay,
watch
good.
the first one with Daryl Hannah and Harrison
Harrison
Ford,
Ford, right? Okay.
and then
Got it.
pop on the Gosling version. They're
Because
both pretty deep.
Gosling's money, dude. Reynolds and Gosling are both can't really go wrong. So yeah,
No, I mean,
okay with that.
I mean, I love saying this. I think I've probably said it at least twice on the pod now, but anybody who can, I guess, ape a Marlon Brando accent, tell the world about it, and then
Right,
keep rocking it for the rest of
right,
his
right,
career
right,
and get away with it, he's doing
right, right,
something
right. Oh,
massively
totally.
correct.
Well, that's what I'll do tonight. I'll watch the first one tonight, and then tomorrow night, well, it's fresh. I'll watch like the remake, and the next time we chat, we can talk about it.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Nice, nice.
Okay, so fast forwarding a little bit, because I'm really curious, one, to hear and talk more about just how you kind of naturally just sort of eased your way into the world of art, the world of making art,
Yeah,
being a student. But
yeah.
now you're also, of course, like facilitating, a platform for a number of other artists. You and I
Mhm.
met at your space, Mott Projects in Catskill, via David Haynes shout out show, Still Alive,
Mhm. Mhm.
which was just a phenomenal time. You did an
Mhm.
amazing job of putting everything together. And it was incredible to see just how much of a centerpiece you've made yourself in that Catskill community.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. I think I think it comes down to I was talking about this last night with a friend. Um, Back in the day, if you were a musician, you had to live in LA, right? And then musicians sort of changed that first. Now you just tour. You can be from Duluth, Minnesota, and just tour, and like you're fine. And I think that the visual arts are always just like a couple steps behind like musicians in that way. And now with like Instagram, um, obviously I did the New York thing for like 15 years or so, but now with Instagram, there's big artists from everywhere, anywhere, everywhere, and I'm meeting artists like around the world, and not from like outside of like London and Berlin and whatnot. If it's good art, it's good art, and if it's cool, it's cool. I
Of
want to
course.
like meet you and like let's hang out and do something. And so yeah, we made the move up here to we're a couple hours north of the city, have a little bit of land, and it's so nice and so pleasant and just calm and serene and beautiful. Um, and I've been wanting to put on shows for a long time. Um, but I just couldn't find a space like in Manhattan or Brooklyn to like make it happen. And actually, I had a studio in East Harlem for a long time, on the east side of New York, of Manhattan. And I had that studio for a really long time. And I remember a few years back, I was just kind of getting bored with it. It was a little bit stale. And so I started looking up in the Bronx for like, I wanted to like a storefront or some kind of like raw space. So I found a couple of spaces in Mott Haven that I was looking at, ended up not taking them. But then that's where the Mott Projects idea comes from. Mott Haven, then also just like Mott Street, Chinatown, just like super New Yorky, you know. It doesn't really mean anything. I don't know. I guess I don't know what it means. It's just like it was easy, and like the M&P logo was like kind of cool. I think I did like made the design before like I even knew what it was going to be. And then just started like interviewing friends, and then we came up here. I have this barn in Catskill that I use as a studio, and then it's just such a great space. And then I was like, you know, maybe this could work for art shows. You know, let's try it. And so the first one was a group show, October of 2021, like 4 artists, and everyone said yes. And it was a lot of people that I'd already had connections with, either I knew them or like through interviews or just the art world's not big, obviously. People know people. Um, but I've only had like one or two no's, which is interesting. So I've been really, really lucky with artists that are willing to take a chance, especially early on. And now, you know, we've had 4 or 5, maybe 6 shows, and now there's artists like coming to me, you know. So now it's like kind of the opposite, where I'm saying no or saying, you know, like maybe let's talk later kind of thing. Um, but yeah, no, just feel really lucky that people were willing to trust me and kind of go with it. And every show's been great, man. Every show's been really unique. Just great artists, good people. Had a lot of fun getting to know these people and working with them.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was that Still Alive show with you, David's crew,
Yeah.
everybody in the community. Like I said, um, there was just you know, a very, very certain amount of magic that was going down.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Absolutely. 100%.
And our main man Jack.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. Props to Jack. He's in Europe right now, kicking it. But it's funny because David was the first artist to actually come to the show. So the first show, the group show, I had a piece, but then there was an artist from Brooklyn who tried to come up, Royal Jarman, but his car like broke down. And then an artist from LA, David Matthew King, and then an artist from Prague, Martin Lukash. And so, you know, like no one came up for it. The second show was my friend Martin from Copenhagen, Pakistan, who didn't, you know, obviously couldn't make it. And then the third show was Noah Latif Lamb from Amsterdam, and then David's show. So it was a little bit little scary. I was like, you know, I remember telling him like 7 times, like, okay, so dude, like it's not Brooklyn. Like we're in, you know, we're a couple hours north. It's a barn, you know, like it's like really, really be open about what we're getting into. And you know, he came and we set up, like you said, just like a blast, just like great people, just a really, really magical weekend. Obviously, just loved it, loved every minute of it.
Yeah. So what is the lineup for 2023 right
Yeah.
now?
So there's some stuff happening in March. Can't There's a big kind of thing happening in March, which is going to be cool. You know, kind of tell you more about that in a little bit. But then we have shows lined up for May, June, July, August. May is there's an artist from Rome. Same sort of thing. He kind of runs like a little, I call it like a project space, you know, kind of like a progressive sort of pretty cool space in Rome. And he reached out, he's like, love what you're doing, let's do something. I'm like, totally. So he wants to put together like a little group show. I would let him curate it. So I think that'd be good. And then maybe down the road, you know, we'll
Mhm.
go to Rome and do something. So that's May. June is an artist from the Czech Republic. I discovered we kind of like found each other last year on Instagram. Painter, which is really cool work. Really excited to like show his work and see his work in person. July is a lady, a painter from Berlin, who again we've like kind of been friends, you know, for a while. So really excited to show her work as well. And then August will be my friend Niels, which is a painting. I kind of have it blurred, but he's a painter from Germany who was in the show in LA. We did a show in Los Angeles. He was one of the artists. So he's going to have a group show or a solo show. And it's cool because a lot of artists, it's their first show in New York, but also just like their first show in like the States, which is pretty rad. Um, and then, you know, again, it's just if you're cool, like if we get along, great. But then also I mean, the most difficult thing is like, I just want to buy everything that I see.
Of
And so
course.
I try to get like one piece from each show. So it's like, well, I'm kind of building a little collection at the same time. So just like showing art that I want, artists that I think are good and cool and interesting.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Look, I am obviously pumped to see the barn again and hang out there again next year.
Totally.
And in the meantime, I think that I'm equally as looking forward to just getting your notes on Blade Runner.
Totally. And dude, it's gonna start like in 15 minutes. I'm on it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, perfect. Well,
I'm ready.
then why don't we, I don't hate the word unpack, but I think that there's a good amount of unpacking there that we're
Sure.
going to need to do.
So I think what we should do is we could soft circle a chance to come back together.
Let's do it.
We'll figure that out.
Perfect. Well, look, man, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. Love what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Much appreciated, and let's do it again soon.
Cool. Bye bye.
Talk to you.
Peace.